About this love. About this about this love. About this love. Love. How you guys doing today? You tuning into About This Love podcast with myself, Dale, and my wife Charel. Say what's up.
What's up, peoples?
How everybody doing? Hope you guys are having a good day. I know last week we were in a collective podcast with a friend of ours who hosts our podcast on his site. It's called Dive Media. Those who tune into it, I know you know it's Dive Media, but it was basically a plethora of all the podcasts that he hosts and that he has under Dive Media, which is About This Love is one of the ones that fall under Dive Media. We also fall under MD LLC as well, but we definitely fall under Dive Media, and I just wanted to have a discussion about the current condition of our country as it relates to the treatment of African Americans. For those who didn't listen to that, definitely go back and listen to that one. This week, we kind of wanted to come with something light. There will be a part two, probably next week, of that discussion with Dive Media as well. But for this week, we just kind of wanted to lighten the load a little bit and, kind of get back to our normal schedule, and then next week we're going to interrupt your lives again. But
interrupt their lives with what? Another riot?
Nah. And it's not really interrupting because I feel like it's discussions that definitely need to be had, in our country. And I think that when you have those kind of conversations, it makes people feel uncomfortable. Because one of the things that, and we discussed this in the podcast as well last week, is that one of the things that America has to do is actually, it has to admit the fact that, the treatment of African Americans in this country is not really up to snuff. It's very poor. And, since the time African Americans have arrived in America from now, it's always been some type of discrimination or harsh treatment towards us as a people. So, like I said, tune into that one. It came out last week. It's a Dive Media Roundtable is what it's titled, part one or this one. And, next week, after this episode, next week will be, part two to that discussion. But for today, we wanted to kind of come with talking about attributes or, what kind of character should you look for in a person that you're considering, to be married to?
What type of character or characteristics? Because they could be a character.
I mean both characteristics and just, the nature of the character. Like, what should you look for in a spouse? And the reason I wanted to do this podcast, I was telling my wife that, a buddy of mine's, a guy that I know, he actually came to me, he had been dating for somebody now for like I'll say about 6 months, and he actually came to me, was like, I wanted to buy the ring, for this young lady, and I really feel like she's the one. And he just began to ask me, how did you know, when your wife was the one, and just, what did you look for, and just it was asking me for advice. And I mean, oftentimes, like when people ask you questions, sometimes I think it kind of catches you off guard in the sense that my mind was somewhere else, so I kind of had to shift and focus on what he was asking me, and kind of just like really think about the questions, let him know, what it was, that we talked about first was, I said, one of the things that I feel like oftentimes people don't do when they're getting into a relationship with somebody that's leading to marriage is that they don't ask enough questions. I was like, I know people always be like, well, let the past thing the past. I said, and that's true to an extent. I said, but don't be foolish enough to think that whatever your girlfriend, went through in her past, whether it's dating or, sexual abuse, sexual assault, or, molestation, or just
any type of
just
assault.
Physical abuse, period. I said, I said, so, he was like, yeah, I really didn't think about that. I really didn't think to ask some kind of questions. I said, yeah. I said, you have to. I said, because, when you get in a relationship that leads to marriage, a lot of that stuff will come out in marriage, and you won't know why. I said, so at least if you ask the questions now, and even if you guys touch on it briefly, at least in marriage, if things come up, at least you'll know what it is, and it enables you to be more gracious towards your spouse, because there's some underlying conditions there from the past. And I mean, I just told him to just ask questions, man. Ask questions.
But what type of questions, Dale? You can say ask questions, but I could ask you like, what you drank today, or what did you eat this morning, or what are you thinking about? And that could be very vague. People who are in relationships now, they think they're asking questions but it's not the right question. So, like, do you have like maybe 3 of the right questions that you can give someone to ask, like some foundational things just to get the conversation going?
Well, one of the things we talked about was I said as it relates to finances, I said, how do you guys view your finances? I said, will you guys be joining bank accounts? Will you guys, not be joining bank accounts? Does she like fine and expensive things, cars, clothes? How does she feel, about children? About your
that's
children.
That's a big thing.
How does she feel about having to relocate? If that was ever an option. Do you guys have the same moral beliefs? As it relates to like just your religion. Do you guys believe in the same thing? Because if you don't, that in itself could bring about a tension in a marriage, because you're trying to bring your children up in the way of the Lord Jesus Christ, and they try to bring them up in the way of Allah and Muhammad. So it's like just things that people don't really think about, and oftentimes it's interesting because as him and I talked, like he actually had acknowledged that these are actually things that I didn't really think about, and oftentimes, to be honest, we don't really think that we have to, like, and no one tells us that to ask this kind of question. We kind of go into a situation with willy-nilly, kind of winging it, kind of doing it as we go along until you get married. And you've been married now for 6, 7 months to a year, 2 years, and problems begin to arise. And you're like, where does stuff come from? It's like, well, they've always been there. They've always been there. You were just, what's that song by Anita Baker? Captured in the Rapture of Love.
Capturing, you be making stuff up. Oh my God.
Captured in the Rapture of Love?
No. Caught up in the Rapture of Love. You was close, but that wasn't it. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's something we had said previously, just asking those questions, how important it is. I know that, man, when you and I were like courting one another, I felt like you would just question after question after question after thing. And, well, what you think about this? I'm like, we already talked about this, right? But I mean, for one thing, it's almost like, how you go through the interview process, you don't just get one interview, they bring you back. And not to say that you're interviewing like 5, 10 women, men to see if, they're the one. But if you're dating someone, you're considering marriage, and it's like, okay, not that, oh, well, are you going to be in it to win it? Are you going to be in it, for love? And am I going to be in it for love? But more so of, hey, you brought up that you don't really have a relationship with your mother. Do you think that, that will affect how you see me, kind of thing? And it's not for you to like be someone's shrink, but it's almost like, in marriage, I don't feel like there should be any deal breakers, because the Lord can reconcile anything, but at the same time,
that's too vague of a statement to make.
What, that there shouldn't be any deal breakers?
Yeah,
no.
Because what if somebody you marrying into multiple partners?
But here's the thing, though.
A deal breaker.
But here's the thing, though. But you're saying you're already married. But what I'm saying is, if you are already married, like, I'm coming to a place where I'm feeling like there shouldn't be any deal breakers. Now, that's not, yes, it's a very vague statement, but I'm saying it as to say, like, if you do the prep work before you get married and then things start to come up, like, anything could come up and you can just walk away. Like, and it's almost because you felt like you didn't know what you were getting yourself into. You weren't prepared. Like, a few years ago, someone had asked me, like, are you sure that you're going to be with your husband for the rest of your life? Like, how do you know? And on one hand, it's like, I don't know. But on another hand, I'm like, well, if I believe that the Lord had put this marriage together, then I believe the Lord will keep us together if we also do the work,
Yeah. Faith without work is dead. And I'm saying that because it's like, because one of the things that I said to him is I told him that, me and my wife, we do counseling. I said, and nothing is wrong with our marriage. We just do counseling. I was like,
we receive counseling.
Yeah, we receive counseling. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. I said, oftentimes it's just preventative maintenance, you know what I'm saying? And not to say that it can always prevent everything, because there's some things that's going to come up that's going to be kind of it's going to be
difficult,
a struggle and a challenge for you to deal with. I said, but just I said, how does your lady feel about that? How does she feel about getting counseling? Because oftentimes people get married and their mentality is, I don't want nobody, I don't want nobody, up in my marriage, up in my business. It's like, well, brother and sister, if you get to a place in your marriage where you hit a roadblock or a fork in the road, somebody's gonna have to be in your business if you want your marriage to survive and to thrive. But if you don't, then hey man, do what you do,
Well, I would say somebody, not just anybody, because somebody could be in your marriage and it's like, yeah, I got another person on the side and they in my marriage and my marriage is working because they do their thing. Like I understand that, but I want to just clear that up because, I know what you mean, but the listeners may not know what you mean. You know what I'm saying, Dale? Mm-hmm. But, I definitely agree with that. There was one thing I wanted to bring up when you did say you wanted to kind of touch on what to look for when dating. And we've, like I said, I'm sure we've previously talked about this. You know how people have their list of things that they want in a spouse and that they want. I think that you also need to be realistic with the other person about that. You know what I'm saying? And I say that because it's almost like your expectations of marriage, it has been shaped and framed by your parents, your, siblings, your aunts and uncles, your coworkers, TV, that has shaped your idea of marriage, your idea of relationships and how that's supposed to work and how that functions. Because, where else are you looking at relationships? Why else do you want to be married unless you've seen it somewhere and you've been interested in wanting to take that next step with someone? And, you have to kind of put out there, okay, this is my idea of marriage. I know one thing Dale and I did when we first got married, I think it was like day one after the wedding, we got, back to the apartment. And I remember you were playing a video game and I was like, hey, Dale, like, let's talk. We need to talk. And you were like, all right, let's just talk. And so I pulled out like a pen and paper and I was like, okay, so what is your expectations of me? And I mean, I'm laughing at it now because man, like I was you could just tell how young and new and fresh, I was in marriage. Cause I'm just like, okay, do you want me to, wash the dishes by the time you come home? And do you want me to have the house clean? And do you want me to, do this and that? But really what I was trying to show Dale is, that I was open to his idea of a wife. And, sometimes you realize that they don't even know what that is because, like, remember, Dale, you were like, oh, I don't know, that's cool. That's cool. Like, yeah. And I was just kind of like, that's cool. No, this is serious. Like, everyone has told me how serious marriage is, and it is serious. I mean, you have to take it seriously. Your commitment has to be, it has to mean something. And so for it to be meaningful, for your marriage to be meaningful, for your relationship to last and have that good solid foundation, I think in your heart, you have to make sure that that means something to you.
And, it's interesting because I feel like with a lot of things going on in the world right now, being specific, like talking about like the dating scene and people wanting sugar mamas and sugar daddies, I think that's actually opened the kind of the gates, the airwaves for people really want like real genuine love. But I think also because it's funny because one of the things that came up in conversation was that like I want a woman that can bring something to the table as well financially, and not just somebody that's looking to marry me because of the job title that I hold, or which is very valid because I know in the past you've shown me videos of people talking about women talking about they want a guy and he got to make six figures and he got to pay for her rent and got to pay for her car note, and I'm saying to myself like just the mentality. It's like people it's coming to the point where people are like, man, look, man, I just want, because everybody in the world playing games and women basically selling their vagina and I mean, basically, it's what you're doing. And I'm not trying to go on a tangent. That's not my point. But my point is, people come to the point where they're like, look, man, I just want a woman or a guy that's going to be my friend, be loyal and committed to me and bring something to the table. And that's all I want. I want to marry her. Of course, they want more, but they're like, that's the basic foundational things that they want. Love me, be faithful and loyal to me, bring something to the table, and let's just build a life and have a family, And I think that what's opened that up is like I said, the world. People are just tired, man. People are just tired. People are tired of chasing booty in the club or whatever, and you being with somebody and they just want you to pay all the bills, and the only thing that they think they're gonna do is just lay and open their legs. It's like, dude, no. I want more than that. I want somebody that's gonna bring something of equal value to the table, and something of equal value to the table doesn't have to necessarily be a paycheck or money, but it has, because that was something that came up too. We was talking about, we was like, well, when you say bring something to the table, you talking about money? He said, no, I'm not necessarily. I mean, I would like that, yes, but just a woman who has substance, who has goals, who has dreams. She's just not sitting home all day, on watching reality TV or just on social media all day. She's planning. She got plans for her business. Her goals. To better
for
our
her
family.
Yeah.
So just something of substance. Like just today, like, and my wife would tell you, because my wife sometimes she'll ask me, well, you know so and so, and them got married, talking about celebrities. I'm like, nah, I don't know who those mamas are. I don't follow celebrities. I don't follow them. I don't know who they are. I may know them if I see them, as far as their face, but I don't follow that stuff. I don't know. I don't follow that stuff. It's too much time. I'm too busy during the day to really pay attention to that stuff. And when I'm out working, I spend time with my, our wife, building our family, or doing a podcast, or with my children. I don't have time to be on social media all day or watch reality TV that's fake. I don't have time for that. You
don't want to watch the fake reality, the fake news,
fake drama,
fake drama.
Mamma's creating fake drama. So I guess on one note, I'm kind of glad that people are being players and women selling. I'm glad.
Wait, you're glad that they're doing that?
I'm glad because I'm not glad, but I'm saying it's opening the door for people who are tired of that type of lifestyle and that mentality, and they want something real.
Well, hold on. Let me say this. I think that there is a good chunk, there's a good chunk of people who are actually out there dating around, not trying to settle down, because, and every time I see this post online, I just cringe, because it's like, a girl dancing up on a guy, and the caption is like, yeah, this is going to be me this summer, and, this is somebody's son. And I mean, if y'all have seen that post on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever, y'all know what I'm talking about. And I mean, like hot girl summer, it's going to be a hot girl summer or whatever. And it kind of disappointed me because, well, one, I have a son, and I'm just like, man, I would want someone to look at my son as if he was somebody to them, as if he meant something to, whoever the young lady is. But I think that there's a level of fear that people have where they don't want to commit. They don't want to they don't want to be serious with, another male or another female. They don't. And it's because it's like, well, if I get serious, you might cheat, or if I want to get married, then, you might do this and that, or we might end up breaking up, or we might end up divorcing, and then I might as well not have done it at all. And it's like, well, on one hand, yes, be cautious, and no, you can't predict the future, but there are some things, to build up that you can do to build up your relationship, but you cannot do it alone. Like, one person cannot be all in it. When you and I, Dale, were first hanging around each other, someone told me, I think that a marriage will only work if the man loves the woman more. And I'm like, that is so not true, because if you just love on a woman and you're not getting anything in return, you're going to feel used, and it's almost like no one wants to feel used. And I mean, some people, if they do want to
being used.
Yeah, some people like being used. They do. But I mean, that codependent relationship, it's not healthy, and that stems from something. And not to say you won't feel used in your marriage. It's not to say that you won't feel let down or hurt ever in your marriage, because you're growing through things, But it's still I hate to say the more you know, but it's don't go into a relationship blind. We gave the example a couple podcasts back where it was almost like, because you're going off of your emotions and off of your lust, that it's like, yeah, let's run off to the courthouse right now and get married because I love you so much and you love me and this is going to be great forever. But it's kind of like, yeah, you find out later on that person has some skeletons in the closet, and they're really a crappy person because they don't, they're very selfish and they don't care, about you. They care about the title of being married.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, oftentimes, because I know one of our previous podcasts, we talked about how oftentimes people just kind of get into relationships with first it's starting with what old school 90s, a booty call, and then to try to develop it into something serious. But I'm not really keen to that because it's like the foundation of your relationship was based off of sex. I mean, I'm not saying it can't work. I mean, I'm sure it could work. I'm sure it does work. But the reality of it is, how much trust do you have in a person when the reality of your relationship was only about sex? Because then you got to wonder, well, who else was he or she sleeping with besides me?
Or if you do know, but then it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to cut this person and cut that person off just to be with you because I'm feeling you. I think it's almost like, I think everyone gets to a point where they're questioning, why do you want to be with me? And if you tell me because of the time that we've spent together, it's like, yeah, and what else? I mean, as a female, as a woman, it's like, yeah, and what else? What else do you love about me? Like, what sets me apart? Kind of like Rihanna's old song from back in the day. I want you to make me feel like I'm the only girl in the world. You know what I'm saying? And it's almost like, yeah, there could be other, like more beautiful girl somewhere or in a different country or, but it's almost like I want to trust that if we were to leave outside of our home, outside of, our walls, you're not going to be looking anywhere else. And especially if sex is the, bottom line of your relationship and you hadn't built up anything else other than time spent together. Because yes, time spent, that does add to it, but it's almost like...
Depends on what y'all doing. I mean,
exactly.
You spend time with somebody and y'all not talking, y'all just watch movies.
Yeah, are you intentional?
Y'all just have sex. I mean, time spent together it doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It doesn't mean anything, because we could be spending time together watching a movie and, you and I have had to be cautious of that too. We're sitting in the living room, you get off work and it's like, yeah, let's watch a movie. And then a few days later, I could be upset because I'm like, man, I just feel like we hadn't talked. Like, what's on your mind? What's on your heart? Like, what you thinking about, tell me, like, open up to me, share with me. And you'll oftentimes find that people don't naturally do that. Like, they don't think about it because
they don't know how to.
Well, yeah, they don't know how to. There's so, like, we can let so much of everything else around us kind of consume our thoughts, consume our time, really, like our cell phones, the television, other people. I know it's a good and a bad habit, with the virus and everything going on. I call my family like several times a day on Duo, and I have to be mindful. An older couple actually has suggested, like, when Dale goes to bed, because we have different schedules, because his work schedule changes from time to time, and so I just got used to your older schedule, Dale. And so, but this older couple told me, like, when your husband goes to bed, go to bed with him. That will make a world of a difference with you all's intimacy. And I was just like, wait, what? And so they were like, no, lay down with him, go to bed with him. And I'm just like, well, that just sounds so crazy. He goes to sleep at 9. That's so early, But then I made a conscious effort to, okay, I'm not going to reply back, to anyone, after 9. We're going to lay down. And I felt like we've had more conversation. I've been able to engage him more, like, to see what's on his heart, how his day really went, because everything's settled. The kids are, put to bed. The kids they're settled. We're settled. We've showered and calmed down for the whole day, and we're just winding down. And I'm just like, I appreciate that time so much more. So it's almost like when you are, kind of engaging someone to, court them to move on to marriage, to date them to move on to marriage, it's like, okay, you know what? I'm getting serious. Like, we're getting serious. In our time together, like, even though we're going out on dates, do we have our cell phones up the whole time? Are we just taking pictures? I mean, am I worried about us looking cute together versus us, really building something or going towards something?
Yeah, it's interesting because the other day we were on the, it was last night we were on the phone with the couple that counsel us. And one of the things that he said was that it's two things. He said that one, when him and his wife were eating dinner, they made it a point to not to have their phones out. Cell phones out. He said also, whenever we're having a conversation, we're making a point not to have our cell phones around as well. Because, you got to think about it, especially for people looking to get married. It's like, oftentimes, when you're married, people would always tell us you're setting the foundation for your marriage. And that the foundation of your marriage is when your husband and or wife is talking, you on a cell phone, scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever other social media sites that's out there. What you're actually doing is you're being dishonorable. Because, yes, you hear what they're saying, but you may not get an opportunity to really listen to their heart and the tone and what they're saying. So, even with us, we got to get better at that as well. I think we do it. We do it more now. Like if I realize she's talking to me, I put my phone down, and vice versa, she put her phone down. But it's like, because sometimes they start talking to you, especially my wife, and you like, well, are we having a conversation right now? Like,
they as in women?
No, I'm saying, yeah, women, like women.
So we just start talking out of nowhere?
Sometimes it seems that way, yeah. Or, no,
that's true.
What it is, I think, is that as a people or as a woman, men, you have a conversation in your head, and then you have it with the person, not realizing that they're not in your head. So to you, the conversation may have started 5 minutes ago in your head, and then you verbally start talking about it, and it comes out. You're like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Like, where'd that come from?
Yeah, where'd that come from? So, characteristics, when looking to marry somebody or looking to somebody who could be a potential spouse, I would just say, really, really ask a lot of questions about them. What kind of things are they into?
Their family.
What kind of things have they been into? Just past hurts. And just really try to be honest. Like I would say, try to set the atmosphere or set the tone so that they can be vulnerable, because oftentimes, like you wouldn't want to be at a restaurant somewhere where it's loud. Well, I guess you can't now because COVID-19. But even before that, you wouldn't want to be in a restaurant somewhere, where it's pretty loud or where other people can hear what you're saying. You want to be in an intimate setting, So
you can still go to parks and talk.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, if you're at a restaurant and it's loud and you're shouting, you really wouldn't want to tell.
Or if you're around the people might be hesitant to really be like, my past, my uncle, is my blah, 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 blah. Or, or I as a kid, I was beat. It's like, just the atmosphere matters a lot. And I feel like the atmosphere can create that level of vulnerability that you may want to get from the person that you're looking to be married to. We also intend on doing some series about dating, and I feel like we've done some we've done them in the past, but we just as we begin to engage people everyday life, I feel like more and more conversations are being coming before us, and people asking us questions, and want us to touch on things. So it's like, hey, let's kind of revisit this topic or that topic that we've did in the past, but revisit it in a different light, what I'm saying, for those, who've been rocking with us for a while. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Like I said, do remember that our podcast can be found anywhere that you can find podcasts. Also follow us on Instagram, About This Love, Facebook, About This Love, and YouTube, About This Love. Thank you for rocking with us. Until next time, peace.